Welcome to this second part in How to Survive the Night in the mountains of northern New Mexico. In part one, we talked about gear and staying in place. There are a number of very important number one rules. Obviously, number one of them is to stay in place and to stay warm and dry. The next one is make sure you tell someone where you're going to hike and when you plan on being back. And then when you get back, call that person and tell them that you returned safely. Because if you don't, then that person, called the reporting party, can call 911. And it doesn't matter where the person lives. If you're visiting from Miami or New York or Texas, you can call someone back home, give them the information. And if you don't call back in safely, they can call 911 here in New Mexico, and it'll get sent over to the state police dispatch. And in New Mexico, state police are responsible for search and rescue. Now, having told that person where you're going to go, i.e., I'm going to hike out of the Ski Basin Trailhead to Lake Nambe, or out of the Taos Ski Resort to Mount Wheeler, the highest point in New Mexico, and then make sure you stay on that hike. It doesn't do any good to tell the person that you're going to hike to Santa Fe Baldy, a little over 12,000 feet, and then decide instead to hike over to Spirit Lake, which is good in part in the wrong direction, because that will only prolong the time you have to spend lost in the forests of northern New Mexico. So it's very important that you tell the person where you go, where you're planning on going, and to go in that direction. And if you don't come, they will call eventually for search and rescue. We'll hopefully find your vehicle at the trailhead, because in all probability that will be the last known point. Sometimes we have missions where it's the point last seen. That is, we will interview other people who are out hiking, and did you see so-and-so, and describe you. And then a person coming in said, oh yes, we saw that person on the Windsor heading towards Cowles, or what have you. Well, we'll know you've made the wrong turn and going in the wrong direction. In any event, we will have a starting point, because without a starting point, search and rescue cannot commence a mission to look for you. There are literally millions of acres here in the mountains of northern New Mexico, and without a starting point, we simply cannot undertake a search and rescue mission. Keep in mind that we typically have limited resources, maybe 2 or 3 or 4 teams of 3 or 4 people each, and for that first night, op period 1, to undertake a search. But if we know where you were planning to go, then in all likelihood we'll be able to follow along and find you. And in that regard, we talked last time about having a flashlight and whether you needed fire starting matches, etc., which for a good part of northern New Mexico, since as many of you may have read, most recently the fire restrictions were lifted. This is in July of 2021. You don't want to start a forest fire. So, what else could you have? You could have a personal locator beacon or a spot device, or a Garmin InReach GPS. Those three all have satellite communication devices. The Garmin InReach allows you to text to any cell phone in the world, and give them your exact location, and it will assist search and rescue in locating you. There are also navigational programs like Gaia, G-I-A, that you can download to your cell phone. Make sure you know how to use it after you've downloaded it, because without that it is basically useless. And if you don't have any of those, you can, on most cell phones, have an icon with a compass. If you call up that icon it will typically also give you your latitude and longitude right there. You may not understand what the 35 with the circle and the comma and the quotes on the other numbers mean, but your search and rescue volunteers will. And if it doesn't show up, you can go to the settings on your cell phone and then call that up. Now, don't keep your cell phone on unless you're using Gaia and know how to use it while you're hiking. Turn it off or at least put it on airplane mode to save the battery. And if you can, charge it up while you're driving out to commence your search. Though there's not a lot of cell phone coverage in the mountains, there is more than ever before. It's still very limited, but it's of no use if your cell phone doesn't have significant battery life. So, you're now lost or injured. The key thing to do is now stay put. As I said before, sit down. Put that big poncho over you after you put your fleece, extra fleece or down jacket on, and just sit and wait. Chew on that extra energy bar that you might have brought, and listen up for the search and rescue teams calling out your name. A little sidelight here before I end this episode. Wildlife in the mountains of northern New Mexico. I'll go more into it next time, but keep in mind that they are not going to bother you, particularly if you don't bother them. As I've said in the past, I've probably got close to 2,000 hikes. I have never seen a mountain lion in the mountains. I'm sure they've seen me, but they don't bother with us. The same with bears, though I'll tell next time about the one and only up close and personal encounter with a beautiful black bear. And we have black bears in northern New Mexico. They're much more docile as long as you don't interfere with a mama and her cubs or a mountain lion and her kittens. Anyway, that's all for now.